We ain't gonna hold y'all up no longer. We got
Serious, yo.
very special guests in the building. That's hilarious though. You like that? That shit funny.
Yeah. How y'all doing?
I'm doing good, brother Garfield. How you doing, my brother? Peace.
I'm doing good, man. Peace and love to y'all, man. Thanks for the invite, by the way. I go on everybody's channel, man. I don't care who it is. For could be 2 viewers. I'm going on everybody's channel, man, because I gotta show everybody love. Every piece of support is good. It could be 1 person, it could be 1,000. And you never know what a connection might bring to the whole table. All right. But thank you for the invite, and I'm ready, man. Let's go.
All right. Peace of Black Power.
Appreciate you coming on, bro.
Yes, thanks for the invite.
All right. Man, it's an honor, man. It's an honor to meet you. I met you before. I've been on your show before, years back. You know what I'm saying? And, man, you gave me a lot of knowledge, you know what I'm saying? And you remember, I don't know if I told you a while back, I was trying to debate some Hebrews and, how they was, trying to come at me with this whole slave, the slave name we was talking about, like the whole, because they had their names in with Jah and all this other stuff. They were trying to use that bull crap. So
let's talk about that today. We're gonna talk about that today.
Cool.
We're gonna break that down today. That should be fun. All right. What else you want to talk about, man? I'm here. You got me for how long? 2 hours? Y'all got me all day, man. 2-3 hours. Let's go.
Let's go.
I want to know about the book. So to start off, first of all, what made you write it, and what gave you the?
Wow. My greatest inspiration for putting this book together stems from my childhood. I was baptized in the Calvary Gospel Assembly Church over 30 years ago at the age of 9 or 10. From that very moment, all I wanted to know was, is this true? Whether or not Jesus existed wasn't a concern of mine. I just wanted to know God. Who is it that I'm praying to? Who is this God? I believed in a book, and I didn't know why I believed it. So me writing a book had a lot to do with my childhood and my upbringing, but it also has to do with the last 9 years going back and forth with these dudes called the Black Hebrew Israelites. So that has a lot to do with it. Those 2 things.
Okay. With your quest, your journey, because I know, I don't know if you looked at all our shows, but we always, let people know that our journey from being a Christian or being a religious person to now, what really what was the milestone in your life? Because I could tell you my milestone, you know what I'm saying? I'm sure Kweli can tell you his milestone that really just like broke that mold that we was basically cast into when it came to this belief system, because we know that this God didn't just zap knowledge of himself into people. You know what I'm saying? God wasn't going around saying, hey, I'm God, believe in me, the Bible's true. It wasn't none of that shit. We was drugged to church. So what was your milestone? What really brought that out,
Okay, well, during my period of enlightenment, I met a man who to this day remains one of my best friends, Kirk Campbell. He introduced me to the teachings of Minister Louis Farrakhan, leader of the Nation of Islam. Something inside of me, an energy of some sort, began to push me in that direction. So that made me leave Christianity and go to another version of Christianity, actually, which was the Nation of Islam. And then further on the next page, I talk about I eventually outgrew the nation, and how this came to be is I came across the book, a book that nobody knows, of course, The Black Man Out the Nile by Dr. Yusuf Ben Yakanan, better known to the conscious community as Dr. Ben. When I read this book, I stopped studying the book I was reading in college. I couldn't believe that Black folks did what Dr. Ben taught. You wouldn't believe the fire this man brought out of me. I started to get every Wednesday. Dr. Ben would be there along with other greats, Ishaka Musa Barashango, Dr. Clark, Wade Nobles, Charles Finch, Professor James Malls, Leonard Jeffries, Rosalind Jeffries, and etc. I attended all the events and slowly drifted from the teachings of the Nation of Islam and was drawn to Africa in the form of Kemet.
Okay. That was pretty much I mean, it wouldn't really put my milestone, but you know what I'm saying, that became later, you know what I'm saying, for me, when it came to Africa. But my breakthrough was similar to yours as well. Kweli, could you remind us about your breakthrough? You know, because I want you to go first since you're the host, but I go, you know, after you.
Yeah, mine was slow, and I had fun along. I call it my spiritual journey. You know what I mean? Because I went from being very, very religious as a teenager to being quote spiritual, and I put it in quotes because I don't believe in a spirit right now, and I think it's a nonsense word. But at the time, if you would have talked to me, I would have said, "Oh, I'm a spiritual person." So I still label it as my spiritual journey. But basically, it was just me searching for the truth. So when you grow up in Christianity, you don't have a choice because you just kind of are brought to church by your parents. And that's pretty much how it was for me. And I'm pretty sure everybody else that's out there that was born a Christian or was born into a Christian family. And so when I got old and I started having questions and I started reading books and stuff, the first book that really opened my eyes was a book by Neil Donald Walsh called What God Wants. And when I read that book, it just opened my eyes to a way of looking at God that I hadn't been exposed to before. And it basically, the gist of the book was, if God created the whole universe, what could he possibly want? So all these people telling you that God wants you to do this and God needs you to do that, they full of shit. Because like, if you created everything, you literally cannot want anything because you already have everything in your possession. So it's not in a true God's nature to want things. And when I read that book, it got me started into exploring other books. And I got out of Christianity just to being, the fact that I'm black and this is a white man's religion, and I know that the history of slavery and the Bible, how it was used, me being black, like being a Christian, just didn't sit right with me. And then when I started researching into the Bible, of course, that stuff didn't sit right with me. When we find out, oh, this book was written 500 years after this book, but they believe that this story happened before this story. That don't make no sense. So things like that just got me out of Christianity. And then when I got out of Christianity, now I was out there looking and searching for the truth. So I was looking at other religions and didn't get with anything that satisfied me or found that it didn't make sense, just like the Bible. And then I got into like those esoteric belief systems like law of attraction and all that stuff. And I found out that stuff was just a big scam. And these people just getting rich, selling $30 DVDs that don't do anything for you, just like the church. So then I started listening to people like Brother Garfield, Brother Jabari, the House of Consciousness, and comedic thought patterns and stuff. And then I really started getting my eyes open, and I started doing a whole bunch of reading. And I decided on my own that, based off of all the accumulation of all the information that I've received over the last few years, I don't have a good reason to believe that there is anything as a God. And that's why I label myself as an atheist. And I think that that idea of letting go of things that we don't have a reason to believe in is the most empowering idea that we as a people can have. And that's why we made this show, so we can spread this empowering thought. That's pretty much my journey from religion to atheism and where I am now.
Okay.
But what about you, Kwame?
Yeah, mine was actually I was 28 years old going to seminary school because I felt like, I was a people pleaser, and all my life I really didn't allow myself to do what I really wanted to do. I was always like listening to my mom and my family. Oh, well, you need to do this, you need to do that. You know what I'm saying? So I really kind of like felt like I had no control over my life because when you look at a child, you know what I'm saying, and when they're born, you're like, okay, I don't. A lot of parents, and I'm a parent myself. We looking at it like, I don't want my child to go through what I went through, or what or whatever. I want to think that I have their best interests at heart. So I grew up in the church, got dragged to the church, didn't want to go because I always had questions. And, my mom, quite naturally, black people always put fear in people, you know what I'm saying? Or if you don't believe in God, you're going to die tonight in your sleep type shit. You know what I'm saying? So it was basically, they instill fear in you so you can believe. And that was the same thing with them. And my mom is in her mid 50s and she still feared this God. She still hate the fact that I'm an atheist. So what did it for me? I'm gonna fast forward and all that stuff. I was in seminary school in East Texas, Jarvis Christian College, and I always had questions with the pastor. He was like, one day we was like, everybody was leaving out of class and everything. He stopped me And he was like, "This don't resonate with you, well, do it?" I said, "Yeah, it do, Pastor. I really want to, teach our people the word of God. You know what I'm saying? Because we need to, Also, he said, sit down, son." And I'm like, okay. So he said, "Son, I'm gonna tell you something." And this is unbelievable. He said, "Son, I do this just for the money." Now, a pastor ain't never told nobody. They won't tell nobody that. He said, "Look," he said, "I'm conscious," and that's when he pulled out an ankh. He had like an ankh inside of his in his drawer. He showed me everything. He said, "Look, this is your assignment. I want you to read this book, 16 Crucified Saviors." Now, this is before Ray Hagen's and all this other shit. When I read that book, I was like, you know what? Osiris, who the hell is that? So I started reading Osiris, the god of the underworld, the god of resurrection. Then I started looking at Sunward. Then, when YouTube was very popular, I started like watching. That's when I joined MBK in 2014. So I was a part of MBK, and I told this story to them too with 93, the other brother Kwame, who else? Joshua Kane, better known as Nukba Kepra. So I was with them, and I was telling them my story. So really, my awakening, me getting shook up was in seminary school at Jarvis Christian College, and the professor, which he was a pastor too, showing me this. He wanted me to know the truth because everybody else, he said, man, everybody else still blue pill. You know what I'm saying? He said, you kind of red pill because I was the only one in class asking questions about the Hebrew language. Where did this come from? If the first language is, I was told that the first language Hebrew, but no, Hebrew comes before Greek. I mean, Hebrew comes after Greek. So when I started researching that stuff, I said, man, that don't make sense. How is God language is Hebrew, but the Greeks came first? Why is the Codex Sinaiticus the oldest written Bible? You know what I'm saying? Why is the oldest synagogue Delos? It's supposed to be in Jerusalem. So, you know what I'm saying? So it's like all this stuff trickles down. And then, you have the oldest writings, which is ancient Kemetic writings. And it just really just didn't make sense. I said, wait a minute. Nobody, they speak of Egypt in the Bible, but they speak of Egypt in an evil way, like it was slavery or something like that. And they talk about Egypt like it's not in Africa, and I was like, man, wait a minute. Then when he gave me that book, 16 Crucified Saviors, I was done. Then I didn't even show back up to school. And that's why I need your help, Garfield, on that student loan. I was like, but because I didn't finish, you know what I'm saying? I left. I didn't after that, I did not go back. In 2014, I did not go back. So,
okay.
Yeah. I got a student loan like a mother. Shit.
All right, Garfield, I got a question for you. I will play a little bit of devil's advocate because I saw the question in the live chat. So basically, some people out there want to know why should they read the book? What is it going to do for them?
Well, I mean, people are very sensitive when it comes to their Bible. Are you challenging their beliefs? This is not really challenging beliefs, actually. This is actually stepping up the scholarship in the community. What happened is we repeat and regurgitate false information on purpose. So what this book is doing is basically giving everybody what the consensus of scholarship is regarding all the major issues in the Bible. When someone reads the Bible, they believe the Bible. Remember when I just read a while ago, I said I didn't know why I believed it, but I believed in a book and didn't know why I believed it. Why did I believe it? Because my parents probably passed it on to me. Your parents passed it on to you. Or whoever is in the chat, parents pass it on to them. So what this is doing, this is breaking up the false information, the pseudo information, and pointing out clearly with scholarship, with a methodology, what's going on with the Bible. Where do we stand as far as scholarship? Because when you're talking about academia and scholarship, it's totally different than talking about a belief. I can't argue belief. You can believe whatever you want to believe. But just remember, if you share your belief with somebody, remember, you're now responsible for what that person do with that belief. Because you told him that this belief was all of that. This was a top-notch belief. So now you have the top-notch belief, and there's nothing we produce with this belief. All these years, we have become a part of what's called a wait-and-see program. We're waiting to see what God is going to do. And over the years, the slave master had us waiting for some God to come and defeat them. And then after that, when we saw no God was coming, we start pushing what's called the karma doctrine. I was arguing with a sister yesterday, and I told her, I said, karma only works in the black community. How comes the slave master and his children are not suffering because of karma? They're not suffering. So karma don't work outside the black community. Apparently, it only works inside the black community. So it's karma's gonna get you. You got me, man. Karma's gonna get you. There's no karma coming. There's no God coming back to do anything. You've been praying for so many years. So what this book does is clear up the misconceptions of the storylines in the Bible. At the end of the book, though, I do lay out where do we go from here. And in where do we go from here, I'm gonna let me just say real quickly what I pointed out. I pointed out 3 plans for the Hebrew Israelites. Whether or not we agree from with their theology, the black Hebrew Israelites have the power to bring their community together under one flag and effect change. They would have to do something as a group that no one else in the community has done before. Empowerment in the community. Approximately 15 to 20 fintech companies have recently offered $100,000 in credit to businesses that have shown that type of money intake for the previous 6 months. You may wonder how these brothers would be able to get such success. It's simple. When you have a well-coordinated strategy, if 1,000 brothers from these groups each put $100 in a business bank account, the monthly total would be 100,000. By the 6 months, the company would have access to more than 1.5 million in financing. With that kind of money, you can talk about real estate, farmland, schools, opening your own supermarket and creating a modern day Black Wall Street. Purchasing an abandoned town makes sense if you want to create a country inside of a nation. The next thing is political cooperation. Many Black Hebrew Israelites are wary of getting involved in politics. Forming a political action organization to promote politicians who share the beliefs of the Black Hebrew Israelites would be ideal. You could even promote your own candidate. The last one I put is a Black Hebrew Israelite credit union. Once again, numbers enable you to accomplish a great deal. Forming a credit union enables you to lend money to people who would otherwise be denied credit for automobiles, houses, and other purchases. It is not a tough job as long as you have the numbers. These are just a few things they might do to demonstrate to the community that they have a larger purpose than distorting a book they obviously don't comprehend. Any person attempting to live by rules established over 2,500 years ago should be respected, even if half of them do not or cannot apply to today's society. Finally, there is strength in numbers. Instead of being branded as a hate organizations that teach false information, the Black Hebrew Israelites have the opportunity to alter the script and embrace economics, politics, and togetherness and be the change in a community that desperately needs it. So, ladies and gentlemen, the book might be dealing with scholarship, but I make sure at the end I do give an alternative for those who are a part of the organization that you could build. You don't necessarily have to be the group that's hated and say, I have the truth, when you definitely don't. Because none of them really know. 99.9% of them don't speak Hebrew or English or anything. What they do is they don't understand the book from an academic perspective. They understand it from a believer perspective, and that's it.
Did Jesus exist in real life, Garfield?
I don't address this in the book, but I believe it's plausible. I mean, the consensus of scholars, that doesn't mean it's 100% true. But when you're dealing with history, you're dealing with probability. The probability is most academic scholars believe Paul. Most academic scholars believe Peter existed. And Peter knew Jesus and wrote, well, he didn't write, but he was reported that he talked to Jesus and so forth. So in that sense, when you are following a critical historical method, I would believe it's a strong probability that Jesus existed.
Well, I remember you was talking about a while back. I think you was on a Sinetta and you was calling out the Hebrews. I think you mentioned somebody named Jesus Benedius that was crucified by the Romans. You know what I'm saying? In the same manner that Jesus was. Can you expound on that? Because I know when you was talking about. Yeah, go ahead.
Different characters in the first century. You had Josephus documented over 24 people who had the name Jesus. It was a popular name because it means savior. Not Jesus the word, but it's Yeshua. So we can't play the J game. The J didn't exist. It's really Yeshua. but the Y and the J is interchangeable because Y and J have like that's a linguistic thing. All right. So when the word letter J was invented, the word became Jesus or Iusos, and then it was Yeshua before, because it's a Hebrew word. But what we begin to find in the first century, we have many people who had the narrative that the biblical Jesus have. You saw it in the New Testament. So that doesn't mean he doesn't exist. Even if he copied Julius Caesar, it doesn't mean he doesn't exist. That's the key issue. And this is an issue that I brought up to Dr. Richard Carey and David Fitzgerald. If you believe Paul existed, right? And if Paul existed and Paul supposedly, according to the narrative, persecuted Christians, who was the Christ that the Christians believed in at the time Paul was persecuting them? And they can't answer that. Because if they were believing in a Christ, they believed in a Messiah, and that person happens to be who the biblical text is based off of.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. See, man, this is beautiful because, like I said, throughout my awakening period, I followed Black News 102, and I still watch your content, Garfield, because I feel like, man, really you and Shaka Almos in my opinion, are the most powerful scholars, you know what I'm saying, in the conscious community prior to Brother Jabari being discovered. Then, you got Infudigi, they're pretty well known and stuff like that. But man, when it comes to you, man, you really putting the information out there, So my question to you, have you ever thought about being a Hebrew Israelite? I know I had that thing too, because my dad's still claiming Hebrew Israelite. Yesterday he said, I'm tired of the Esau. I said, Pops, the white man is not Esau. Stop saying it. And
I have never ever thought of being a Hebrew Israelite. Never crossed my mind.
What is your identity like religiously? Do you have one, or do you identify with a religious group?
I'm more of an agnostic, but I don't identify with any religious group. And if I did follow a religion or any system, I wouldn't tell anybody, because I'm not looking for followers or people to follow what I do. As I said earlier, if I worship cats and sacrifice cats, that don't mean you should follow it too. When you believe it's private, it should be private. But because people want to sell religion and become, you see what happened is Elijah Muhammad made it bad for everybody. What Elijah Muhammad did was he put in front of the world some of the greatest men: Muhammad Ali, Louis Farrakhan, Malcolm X. All these great speakers and men in the history, some of the top 5 leaders in our history come out of the Nation of Islam. Khalid Abdul Muhammad, Nur Muhammad, come out of the Nation of Islam. Best speakers. And what happened is, because of the greatness or the success that Malcolm X had, everybody wants to be that. They want to use the Bible and get a following just like Malcolm X and be the next Malcolm X. So because of Elijah Muhammad and who, then you do what you got to do. You know what I'm saying? They want to be just like Malcolm.
Okay. Out of Christianity and Islam, which one is worse for our people? Which one you think was better, and which one do you think is worse? I know it's gonna be all of them.
Oh man! Wow, that's a good question.
Would you rather get shot or stabbed? What you want?
Wow. Well, Christianity has basically dominated us, period, as Black folks. Islam came in and tried to take us out of Christianity, but it was just another version of Christianity and Judaism. So they all the one and the same, one umbrella. It's all falls under Judaism. They all fall under Judaism. So either of them, it don't make a difference. They both did damage to us. The Muslims enslaved us because they thought we were from Ham. Christianity was doing it because they felt they were conquering the world. Wherever they went, they could conquer. So it is what it is. It's either it's Jack and Jill, Heckle and Jekyll, whichever one you want to pick. You just flip a coin. They both did some very horrible things to Black people's psyche, especially our psyche. Okay.
Which chapter in the book would you say is the most powerful or the most enlightening?
No Exodus, no religion. No
No
Exodus.
Exodus, no what? I didn't hear the second part.
No Exodus, no religion. I prove in that chapter that within the biblical text, the Bible tells us that there's no Exodus. In the book of Chronicles, it shows Judah. Let me just break it down for you real quickly. Genesis 38. Let me just tell you off the top of my head anyway, so I don't have to go find pages. Genesis 38. Judah deviates from his brothers and goes down to Canaan, meets a Canaanite woman, have sex with her, have 3 children. God killed 2 of the children because he killed one because he disobeyed him. He killed the second one because he didn't want to ejaculate inside of his brother's ex-wife. So God killed 2 of the sons. The third son, Judah said, nah, I ain't going to give him up for you to go marry Tamar because God might kill you too. So he went to go find a prostitute. Come to find out the prostitute was Tamar, who is his son's daughter, which is actually against the law. So now he has sex with Tamar, create twins, Pharez and somebody else. So now those children end up having children, right? Now this is all taking place inside of Canaan when Judah is supposed to be actually in the Exodus. So what we find in 1 Chronicles 4 and Genesis 38 is a continuation of the story. So in 1 Chronicles 4 now, Judah
dope fiends and dope heads. It's a prophet.
So Shelah, the son that didn't have sex with Tamar that survived, ended up having children, Lekah and Mashalah, whatever, and they end up living in the land and continue to live in the land. So how could Judah's children live in the land, continue to live in the land, if they were supposed to be in the Exodus at the same time? Now, in the storyline of the whole Exodus, not only do I show this with Judah, I show this with Ephraim, I show this with Manasseh, and I also declare that throughout the entire book of Chronicles, it shows a tradition from the eponymous ancestor, which is what the tribal name is, like Manasseh, Ephraim, come all the way down to David, had no storyline about the Exodus, the conquest, or coming in, or them coming in and beating up the Canaanites in Canaan. So I show a continuity of the history all the way from the ancestors, Jacob, come all the way to David, and they never went to no Exodus. So the question begins now: why would God inspire man to write Chronicles, which contradicts the Exodus narrative? So, and both of them are supposed to be inspired by God. So that's going to be the biggest thing people take away from this book, and it's a real dagger that they can't say nothing, bro, because guess what? They believe in the Bible, and it is in the Bible that it says so. So that kills them.
Okay. What is your take? I know you probably said this in several videos too, because I still have an issue with these Negro brews. You know, I used to, back in the day, NBK used to call them nigger brews. But what is your take on the 12 tribes chart, and why the Hebrews still cling to that, like as if it's true? Because it seems to me, and I'm gonna make a statement too, it's like our histories with them starts at slavery 410 years ago. You know what I'm saying? Why do they cling to that?
They cling to it because they don't have anybody who with academic rigor to like teach them how methodology, how to go about something and look at it and so forth. So what they do, ladies and gentlemen, they put themselves in a situation like this. If you are a part of the 12 tribes, how do you prove it? It's several ways how to use academic scholarship and beat it up. There was an intercontinental slave trade. So between 1750 and 1800, you had what's called an intercontinental slave trade, where the slave trader in Jamaica and Barbados would take their slaves and bring them to America and the British colonies. So if those people are part of the Benjamin, how are they now intermingled with who is Judah? And how do you determine who is Judah and who is Benjamin and mixed up? So that's one way to kill it. Another way to kill it is the West Indies. You have a tribe specific for Haiti, which is Levi. Haiti is in the West Indies. You have another tribe for Dominica. The Dominica is in the West Indies. They have another tribe for Cuba. Cuba is in the West Indies. So it's kind of confusing when you look at all these names on the charts and they all attached to West Indies, but yet still the West Indies only belong to Benjamin, which is in Jamaica. So it makes no sense. But look at the slaves that you part of was part of NDK one time. You talk about the Hanseatic League and those people, the Portuguese taking the blacks from Africa and bringing them to the Balearic Islands or to the Atlantic Islands, Sao Tome, and all these different areas. They were slaves. So right now, family, we're looking at somebody right now, who is claiming that they're part of a 12 tribes that makes absolutely no sense. None at all. What about the Panama Canal? You had Jamaicans go to Panama to help. My great-great-grandfather was in Panama, and great-great-grandmother was in Panama. They helped to build the Panama Canal, the men over there and so forth. So how do you mix up Panama now in the mix when all these people from different cultures went into Panama? You know, it just doesn't make sense logically. Don't make sense. So the 12 tribe chart, the reason why it's not corrected, because somebody at the top never said, hey, you know what, we need to reconsider this chart and wipe it out, because it would be saying that Arya and Abba Bivens and all of them, the set heads was wrong. That's what it's saying.
Okay. All right, family. I hope y'all got y'all pen and pad, man, because we got a powerful show going on tonight. Today, I'm sorry. But is this to piggyback off what you just said, is this why the Hebrew Israelites won't deal with DNA? You know what I'm saying? Someone will, like Zion Lion Lex.
Some of them deal with DNA, but sometimes they misuse the DNA, because now they have this whole jet match thing they're trying to run to, and then they try to say E1, B1A. We're not going to allow them to mix up DNA and try to fool us. The issue is the most people that come here, over 40 different tribes, come from West and Central Africa. If they come from West and Central Africa, you ask yourself, how long has that marker been in West and Central Africa? Because that E2 marker has been in West Africa for over 10,000 years. So if any migrating went on, they would migrate to the Levant region. They wouldn't be migrating, meaning they went to the Levant, not come from the Levant. So that's something that we have to think about with DNA. And you know what? People don't want to be attached to West and Central Africa. It's not sexy enough. They want to be attached to Arabia, Islam, home of Islam. They want to be attached to Israel because they feel they could be a chosen person. They want to be attached to somewhere in the Levant or Ethiopia, somewhere that has some sort of rich history that could make them feel chosen. They don't feel that with the Mali Kingdom. They don't feel that with the Ghana Empire. They don't feel that with Ouagadougou. They don't feel that with the Songhai Empire. I don't know why. Because those empires been trading and been top-notch for a long time. So people need to recognize that hating who you are is what led you to become a Hebrew Israelite.
Hey man, you know, and this is another follow-up question, because like I said, I'm going in order because I'm you know, hitting on things that you rip apart. In my opinion, and I want your opinion on this as well. Do you think it was that Rudolph Windsor's book, Babylon, the Temple of Two? Because I think this is the book that came out in the early 2010, 2000. Well, probably came out before that, but I know. Well, I didn't hear about it until then. You know what I'm saying? Babylon, the Temple of Two. Do you think that that's why these Hebrew Israelites think that they migrated from the Levant into, you know, from Israel into the Levant down into West Africa, and then we got captured? Because you broke it down like, you know, well, if that's the truth, then why do some of the African nations still have their own traditions? None of them claim that they be Hebrew. It's like only maybe 10,000 Hebrews in Africa, all that's claiming be Hebrew Israelites. So if they did that migration, then why do some of the African people still have their, you know, like with the scarifications, they eat rats? I remember that video vividly when you broke that down. So do you think it's because of Rudolph Windsor, Babylon and Timbuktu?
There's two ways to look at Rudolph Windsor. Rudolph Windsor didn't have a methodology in what he's doing. He just wrote a book. It blew out of proportion. Black people hung on to it. But the truth of the matter is, he made a better case for the quote-unquote Sephardic and Ashkenazi Jews than actually black Jews. Because the truth is, in Mesopotamia, over 1 million Jews lived there before during the first century. Over 1 million Jews lived in Mesopotamia. So what happened is, from Babylon, he is correct because that's where the academies were. But what he was trying to say is, he was trying to say the academies were black people, and those black people migrated into West Africa after 70 AD. In my book, I do break down 70 AD and show that he don't have a source that says 1 million Jews went into West Africa. There is a source that says 1.1 million Jews died, right? But if the Jews had exiled out of Jerusalem or Judea, how comes 65 years later you got over 500,000 of them dying again? Where did those Jews come from? So it shows that they were in exile. They moved from one area of Israel to another part of Israel. A lot of them died though, but there was no Roman exile of Jews out of the area to northern Africa. They already lived in northern Africa. They already lived in Egypt. They already lived in Libya. They lived in these places already. So it wasn't like they were running to go those places. So Timbuktu was a part of the trading post. If you study the Majorcan Jews and how they had the maps and the atlas and tell you exactly where the Jews were, you could know where exactly the Jews went. But Rudolph Windsor, to me, makes a better argument for the quote-unquote white Jews than actually black Jews, the whole Babylon argument. Because those Jews in Babylon were not black. They were not black Jews. Those people were part of the Gulat community, the Amoraean community, the Tanakh community, and that's how Judaism was formed. From the Gulat community, which was 2,200 years ago, they used to have priests over the communities. So this is why I don't understand with these Jews. They got to study the history of Judaism. They act like the people in the 500 BCs had like 39 books, the Old Testament and the Apocrypha. I was walking around like, yeah, man, this is what we need to follow. No, they never had that. At one point, Daniel and Ezekiel wasn't even in the Bible. They didn't trust those books. So now with Rudolph Windsor's book, we need to vet it properly. I'm not going to disrespect the elder, but it's pretty much a pseudo book. We all know that. And we all know what he says in the book is pseudo, completely pseudo.
Okay, so that basically puts a dagger in the migration. You know, the Israelites migrating from, Moses' people. You know what I'm saying? Why do
I don't know. One quick second. There's a chapter called 70 AD and 1 million Jews into West Africa. There's 3 wars I cover: the 70 AD war, the 115 AD Kittus war, and the 135 AD Bar Kokhba revolt. This is how you know how Jesus was. In 115 AD, the Kittus war, they said Lucas Andreas was the Messiah, right? In 135 AD, during the Bar Kokhba revolt, they said Bar Kokhba was the Messiah until, of course, the revolt didn't happen. But he was like a general, a guy that fight an army like. So he was definitely considered a Messiah at 135 AD. And you have to ask yourself, if Jesus was considered a Messiah, how did this guy? Well, they had multiple different Jewish groups, but they felt that Jesus didn't fit the prophecies, but this guy was a revolutionary, a general, an army guy trying to fight. So they felt he fit the criteria. But the thing about it is, after the Bar Kokhba revolt, they developed a synagogue around 200 AD. Rabbi Hanassi built, and then he was the guy that had to do with the Mishnah and the Jerusalem Talmud, then the Babylonian Talmud, and all those different things. So those are the things people got to consider whenever they're thinking about talking about 70 AD. I remember during the Kittus War, bro, the Jews were winning. They would kill the people, cut their skin off and wear it, and they were cannibals. They were eating the Roman soldiers like food, cut them up and eat them. So these were cannibalistic Jews who were wearing the clothing of the Romans' skin. So that's another part of the history that's just crazy that needs to be talked about. But go on to the next question, brother.
We can bring you on the air right now. If it's all right with Garfield, we got a caller. Ultimate Truth. It's cool with you, Garfield?
Ultimate Truth. Come on, in, let's go.
All right, Ultimate Truth, you got the floor, bro. What you want to know from Brother Garfield?
Yeah, Garfield, how you doing?
I'm doing good, brother. Peace and love to you.
I know you can hear me because I got a problem with my StreamYard, so I had to call into my regular line. Yeah, I listened to you explaining how to went from Christianity to the nation to the nation of Islam. You know, nation of Islam is not Islam. You know it. They're worshiping Allah Muhammad. So they're not worshiping Allah. They're saying that God came from darkness. When God says in the Quran that He created darkness, so they say that God is black. They say that every single black man is God. No Muslims believe that, but them. So you went from worshiping a man called Jesus Christ to worshiping a man called Allah Muhammad. So you didn't do enough research, really, to decide that religions are atheists. I believe that you need to read the book. You cannot be following people. You gotta read whatever book you hear bashing the people confusing the Bible and the book given to Jesus. This Bible was not given. You can tell. It said according to Paul, according to Luke, go and read Matthew 9:9. When Matthew was at the table of the tax people, Jesus went by. Matthew told Jesus. Jesus told Matthew. Is Matthew writing this? No. People wrote under the name of Matthew. That happened to Muslims. That's what they call hadith. Bukhari, Muslim, other people wrote books saying that those were the sayings of Muhammad or of Jesus. Now the Jews got their book. It's called the Injil. So Christian, we got messed up when people starting believing in Jesus as God or even as a messenger.
Is there a question that
Jesus was clearly clear in the Bible.
All right.
So the Bible.
Ultimate Truth, you gotta ask a question. What's your question?
Yes, about to. My question here was, why didn't you go through all the books, all the so-called books from God to make up your decision? But everything you said was, I was a Christian, then I went to Nation of Islam. I mean, you didn't quote the Quran, you didn't quote the Torah, you didn't quote you only quoting the Bible, the New Testament, and you never went to the Buddhist. You gotta go to every religion before making your decision. Why would you be making a decision without knowing really what the other people believe?
All right, did you hear the question, Garfield?
Yeah. First of all, you could tell when somebody's a believer in a book, right? They're very passionate. They're very passionate about what they believe in. First of all, I treat Islam the same way I treat Christianity and Judaism, the same exact way. Without Judaism, there's no Islam, because what happened is Islam is repeating the same information. They have Abraham, they have Moses, and they have Solomon, they have David. Now watch this. Abraham in the Quran is said to have been to Mecca when he was alive. Ladies and gentlemen, there was no Mecca before 4th century AD. So how could Abraham, the great guy of the religion, be in Mecca when the place, the construction of any kind was there? I don't believe in any religion. It's all made by man. Every religion that has every God that has a name was invented by man. The man that said Allah invented Allah. The man that said Yahweh invented Yahweh. The man that said Jesus invented Jesus. The fact of the matter is, it's all an invention by man. So you're telling me I follow Elijah Muhammad? If I want to follow a man who's promoting blackness and promoting black superiority to reverse the black inferiority we have, I'm not going to knock him. But he is right, because I did leave Christianity to worship. I was worshiping a white man to leave and go worship another white man, Master Farad Muhammad. So I do agree with that part. But at the end of the day, I'm no longer there. And I don't want to be a part of Islam. Islam can't do nothing for me. Your God can't talk back to me. He has not done anything for black people. And when he has answered our prayers, I'll look at that God and say, hey, he has done some service. Black people have been, ain't nobody prayed more than black people in the history of mankind. Nobody, no culture. No culture joined religion more. You got black Buddhists, you got black Hindus, you got black Confucianists, you got black Shintoists, black Muslims, black Christians, black Jews, black everything. And none of those gods have responded for black people are now. You can't stop no cop on the streets in America and say, hey, I'm a Muslim. And he gonna say, hey, I ain't gonna beat you today, man. Allahu Akbar. Get the hell out of here.
Man, you know, this is very interesting. What is in your opinion? Because I have this argument with Negro Brews all the time. I always say that's a white man's book you're reading. You know what I'm saying? And even the people that are Muslims, black people that are Muslims, they always say it's not a white man's book. I said, well, give me the black man that wrote the Bible. Give me the black man that wrote the Quran. Give me the black man that wrote the Torah. And it stumps them right there. They like, well, I don't want to talk to you no more because you have no proof that book, that Christianity, Judaism, Islam is a black religion. Like Brother Polite said, and even you said it. Can you show us a time? What were we doing before these books as African people? And they don't want to believe that they're African. So like I said, I know it's a loaded question, but why do these fools think that the religion that they believe in is black? They want to paint Jesus black. They want to paint Allah black, God black. What's up with that?
Yeah, I think religion serves its purpose. And I think any religion is all about following. But you know what though? Constantine created the playbook though for religion. He said, instead of me going over to Africa and fight with the Africans and try to conquer them with my soldiers, all I had to do was just give them religion. Because wherever that cross is, that means I've conquered them. So all he had to do was give the Ethiopian. Fermentus only had to give his honor Christianity and teach him Christianity, and that's it. It's done. My job is done. All of a sudden, Ethiopia is this big Christian religion. They started changing the signs on their coins from the crescent and the moon sign. Now they have a cross. So this is what religion does if you follow the Constantine platform or the playbook. You just give them religion, and once they believe that, you control their mind. You know their limitations. You know what they're willing to do. You know Christians ain't no black Hebrew Israelite gonna be on no damn federal.
Thank you, sir. What's his name again? Dave? What's his name?
Garfield.
Yeah, he's
Garfield. Okay, I don't know exactly what you said. I mean, everything you said because I had to switch
you can't do the interview.
Go ahead and finish what you were saying, Garfield.
You got to mute him out because his stuff is delayed and then he's just jumping in while I'm jumping in. As a matter of fact, he asked his question. You need to move to the next caller. That's how you got to do it because he's going to be listening to the video and then he's going to cut in whenever he wants to cut in. You can't do it like that. But anyway, I answered the question. Don't worry about it. You can let him in. It's all good.
Muted. I can't.
I apologize for that. We're gonna just let Ultimate Truth answer the question. The next time, you know what I'm saying, we're gonna have to do one question at a time. But go ahead, Ultimate Truth.
Okay. I just want to react to his opinion about Abraham and Mecca. You can't be here pretending that you know the book when you don't know the book. There is nowhere in the book it says that Abraham was sent to Mecca. Abraham built the base that became Mecca later on. You're going to see one verse. Now you're here lying on a book, and then you are pretending to be truthful. You said Abraham was nowhere to Mecca. Where he built the Kaaba, the house, became Mecca. There was nobody living there at the time of Abraham. Abraham came from different horizons to go to that place now called Mecca, that became Mecca, to build the house to save the later Meccans. For what business? So when you're saying that Abraham was sent to Mecca, I'm like, where did he get that? Why are you lying on the book? You gotta be truthful. You can't be lying on the book. Everybody can debunk that. Anybody. The smallest Muslim man can debug that. So don't be telling lies when you're defending something. You gotta be truthful. You cannot defend something with lies. Seriously. Show me one verse in the Quran. Show me where
hold on, Truth. Let him respond. Let him respond.
Okay. Now he said that that Abraham is supposed to have built the Kaaba. Is that what he said? That eventually became Mecca, right?
I believe so. That's what he said.
All right. So now, ladies and gentlemen, listen. If he built the Kaaba, right? Look at this. Migrants from Yemen initially settled the area and built the Kaaba in the early 5th century AD. The Kaaba wasn't built until the AD period. Mecca never existed until the 4th century AD. So even if I am incorrect in saying Mecca and the Kaaba wasn't there either. That is the point.
That part.
How could he build something that never existed? This is what kills religion, archaeology, and history. You got to know the history. This is why, by the way, too, I did a misconception for the Israelites. Don't think the one about Islam is not coming down the line, because they next. Them and the Moors is next. Don't think they off the hook with them crazy ass. Get out of here with that, bro. He just said, Garfield, prove that it said the Mecca. You know, brother, you might be correct, but Kaaba is after Mecca was built. The migrants from Yemen built it. They don't know this. So they are worshiping for 1,500 years later. You don't even know the history of what you're talking about. This is how corrupted religion is. And without and the Old Testament, you ain't got no Quran. What are they talking about? This is Garfield talking.
And you know, it's sad that this brother, where is he from? Kweli?
He from I want to say Nigeria. I might be wrong though, but he's somewhere in Africa.
Sad. You know what? He ain't called our show in a long time, but what about 3 or 4 months?
I had to block him for a minute though. You know what I'm saying? I had blocked him because he got a little disrespectful, but I think he learned his lesson now. You know what I'm saying? He called in a little more calm now.
Hey, is he still on the phone?
Nah, because he can't hear on the cell phone. He can't hear y'all when y'all speaking, so he really don't. I can't really do it the way we usually do it. And he say he claiming that his microphone broke, so he can't join the panel.
Oh, like StreamYard?
Yeah.
Okay. You know, he did this numbers game. I don't know if you already told him, man. I had to go handle something real quick. I don't know if you told him, Kweli, Garfield, about the numbers. Yeah, he was talking about like the number ends up to be 1,900 or something like that, and can't nobody do that. You know what I'm saying? Counting up all the A's and the E's. I'm like, how does that prove that God wrote it? I mean, we all know that God didn't have no pen and paper. Ultimate Truth talk about this book like it was sent from heaven. You know, like God just had a print press in the sky. He wrote this book.
Bear in mind, and this is the game that another guy, we won't call his name, but we're gonna call him the lion guy. This is what the lion guy does. What happened is gematria is like a science. What happened is had a lot of Hebrew Jews who were into Kabbalah. Kabbalah had to do with sometimes with gematria. Gematria is a cute science. So I could find a word and say, hey, that word comes out to 1995. Do you know that 9/11 was predicted through gematria? Somebody predicted 9/11 through some other mathematical nonsense. They say, you see, it's 9/11. But the fact of the matter is, you could pick any random verse. They're not going to tell you to pick. They're going to pick the verse for you and tell you it comes out to 1990. So if it comes out to 1990, why don't the verse that I pick come out to 1990? Why only this specific verse? Why you got to be specific? There's no, you see what happened is that's the Greco-Roman influence on the text, because gematria is really like a Greek influence on the biblical text. So the Bible is the Hebrew Bible, it influences the Quran. So if they have some little numbers thing going on, it's possible. I'll give him that. It's possible. But it don't make the Bible special or anything. That's man doing it. It ain't got nothing to do with no special, like, oh, this book is special.
Right.
Gematria, please.
That's the point I was trying to get him to understand. I said
Quran is not, and by the way, because these Muslims are more sensitive than even the Rastafarians. So you got to be careful talking about the Quran. You get death threats in a minute. But let me just say this. Because we don't believe in no mystery God. We know that man will kill you for this bullshit. So we ain't gonna say God will protect us. We protect ourselves. So what I'll say is we gotta be careful with Islam, because Islamic belief is based off of Abraham, is a part of the Abrahamic faith. The Abrahamic faith, the first thing is you can't prove there's an Abraham, you can't prove there's a Moses. The third thing is those are the central figures in the book. Moses is written about more than any other figure in the Quran. Moses. A lot of people don't even know that. So now Moses don't exist, Abraham don't exist, and they're the two central figures in the Quran. What should that tell you moving forward? We don't need to read that book. What is it going to do? What is it going to do other than somebody saying, hey, if you believe this, I'll beat you up? All Islam did was say, here what? It's a new form of religion to follow. I'll beat you up. And guess what? They beat up the Christians and you was enemies with the Christians, so you joined in with the Muslims. That's all it was. New religion, new vibes. Let's go.
Wow. Hey, hey, I concur, man. That's, you know what, this is beautiful, man, because I just don't get it. Like, I don't know how many people's watching or whatever, 'cause I can't see the feed or whatever, but I hope that we are reaching more people. You know what I'm saying? I know you do it every day or every 3 days or whatever with the Dagger Squad, but it's still some of our people still feel like they want to defend this book. They defend this book, like you said, they'll beat you up if you don't believe it. Because I had people, threatening me, talking about I come slap you, and we had white people talking about, calling our show last week, talking about Jesus Christ is your savior, nigger. You know what I'm saying? All this other stuff. You know what I'm saying? Which I find it pretty funny. But religion has such a hold on people's mind. Like, black people think that they're red pill. Black people think that they are woke or whatever, but you still hold on to this superstitious belief. You know what I'm saying? And with people like you, Infodigi, Jabari, you know what I'm saying, trying to really enlighten people about our history, not their history. That's their story, not our story. That's why they call it his story. You know what I'm saying? But here's the question I want to ask. Do you think Christianity is a direct plagiarism from Kemet? Or do you think it's just like Family Guy is to The Simpsons? You know what I'm saying? If you get that concept. Yeah.
I don't like the whole argument of taking from, because I do believe syncretism is what we would call it. And I don't think, in my book, I try my best to say, invent a concept called stories have no borders. So there could be a story in Africa that leaped and went on for thousands of years, and a derivation of that story might be in the Bible. That don't mean they stole it from Africa. You know what I'm saying? It has to do with syncretism. It has to do with trade. So I am going to say that Egypt didn't influence the Bible as much as Mesopotamian culture. I'll say that. I'll leave it right there. I don't think it influenced, because if you look at the basic elements of the Bible, like the calendar, the weekdays is 7 days. In Egypt, it's 10 days a week. They have a calendar that follows a 19-year metonic cycle. Y'all probably don't even know what the hell I just said, but they follow that, and that's out of Mesopotamian culture. Their calendar system, their holy days, their everything, they have Mesopotamian or some sort of Assyrian influence. So I can't give it to Egypt. I'll say that when the book was being formed, Egypt didn't play as much of a role as Assyria and Mesopotamia in far as the Bible. And we got to be very careful, because remember, there's Egyptian loanwords all over the book of Exodus. So you got to ask yourself, how did that get there? Are we going to say that it happened during the time period of Exodus? Or are we going to say later on during the Hellenistic period? We got to be very careful, because you might legitimize the book by trying to say they took from Egypt. Because we could say, yeah, man, when it was coming out of Egypt, I thought you said no Exodus happened. We got to be very careful. We got to be very careful with that. They took from Egypt. We got to be very careful with that conversation.
Yeah, because really, like, because a lot of people follow the, they look at from Genesis to Deuteronomy, you know what I'm saying, is the first 5 books of Moses or whatever. I think Numbers, I guess he had something to do with that, but he basically wrote his own death off and this and that. Hebrews, they tend to, well, from me talking to them, they tend to say that this is the same as the Torah. But how is it the same as the Torah when you got scholars back then like Desiderius Erasmus talking about the Greek and the Hebrew was wrongly rendered? But they still, and you showed them that. You show the Hebrews that even scholars that basically was trying to put this book together saying that the Greek was wrongly rendered, the Hebrew was wrongly rendered, but they still follow it. Why they can't show me in the Torah or the side? Because really, the oldest version of Deuteronomy 28:68 is in the Sinaiticus, and it don't even talk about slave ships. I mean, how do you I mean, I know it's a bunch of cognitive dissonance with them, but when you show them versions of the code, I mean, of that, go ahead.
Let me stop you. And you got to be very careful with that point. Kevin Wesley had brought it up a couple of years ago, and my brother, what's the brother? I forgot his name. He has a beautiful channel too. All right, now the Dead Sea Scrolls does have Deuteronomy 28:68, so that kills that argument. So when we make an argument that the Codex Sinaiticus is the oldest, the Dead Sea Scrolls does have Deuteronomy 28 verses 68. It doesn't have the entire verse, but it has enough for you to see that that part is actually there. And if we look into history, we do have the Assyrians taking the Israelites into Egypt on ships. We have it. We got a primary source on that. That's actually going to be in volume 2. It was a chapter on Deuteronomy 28 that I wrote, but it was too many pages. But I do want to say we got to be very careful. Codex Sinaiticus is very important because that carries on the Greek version. What we do find in the Deuteronomy 28 verses 68 in the Dead Sea Scrolls. You could look it up after the show is over, and you'll see that it's actually there, and you could tell what was there and what was added and so forth, depending on which version you use. So we got to be very careful with that argument. It's an argument that I've made before, but I was corrected, and I'm going to pass on that information to you.
You said that's in the Dead Sea Scrolls?
Yeah, the Dead Sea Scrolls. It does
okay.
have Deuteronomy.
Yeah, I definitely check that out.
Yeah, Deuteronomy 28:68. It does have it, but they wouldn't know either because most of them say that they believe in Lako and Kodash, and that the Hebrew that we have today is fake, but the same Hebrew that they had in the Dead Sea Scrolls is what people are teaching today. You know, so I mean, Dead Sea. And by the way, there is some Dead Sea Scrolls that's fake, that's forgery. Let's not mix up all the Dead Sea Scrolls together. All right. Some Dead Sea Scrolls during the coronavirus last year, they actually produced them and they translated them and everything. They said those are fake, not the Dead Sea Scrolls. A lot of people hear one argument and try to pull it all together. I knew the Dead Sea Scrolls. No, not all the Dead Sea Scrolls. The ones that they published last year were actually fake. They were forgeries.
Yeah, because it's in pieces, it's in fragments, so you really can't tell what is said on there. You know what I'm saying? Does it even on the Dead Sea Scrolls? It does.
Some of them you can. Some of them you can. Some of them you can. And they have a project where they piece it together and all that stuff. They have experts that do that, paleontologists, and you have people that deal with that type of stuff. So let the experts who do it, let them do their thing, man.
Okay. So on the Dead Sea Scrolls that do have Deuteronomy 28:68, do you think it has the same thing as the King James, or is it it's saying something totally different?
It's the same thing as the King James. The same thing as the King James. It's kind of confusing because sometimes the hey, Steve the Theorist, yes, TrueFlix, tell TrueFlix I will come on his platform. It's not a problem. It's not a problem. Sometimes the Codex Sinaiticus, when he showed that, I'm kind of puzzled why it says that. I'm kind of puzzled, because the Greek version is what the writers write. That comes from a Hebrew version. But sometimes the Hebrew version is kind of contradicts the Greek version. It's like it says 75 people goes into Kemet, and then the Greek the Masoretic version says 70. But then when you look in Acts in the New Testament, it says 75, and then when Jesus is quoting, he's quoting from the Greek version. So the Greek version must have had some legitimacy in the time of when Jesus lived. You understand what I'm saying? So it's hard to piece it together, but I let the experts do their work.
Okay. Because like I said, in order for us to break this Hebrew spell and this Christian spell over our people, what information, you know what I'm saying? I know your book and I can't wait to buy it, you know what I'm saying? What is the best way, you know what I'm saying? Like if I want to talk to my mom or my sister, so they're younger than me.
Don't talk to your mom. Leave your mom alone, bro. Leave that alone.
No, because it's like every time, you know, I talk to her like on Sundays or something like that.
Nah,
you know,
bro. Don't do it. Leave it alone, bro. Let you be the new generation of not believing, because she's gonna die sad that you're not believing. So at the end of the day, let your mom, live on and die in peace, bro. Because at the end of the day, the legacy is you. So she don't want to say the legacy is a heathen and he going to hell. Leave mama be, as Miss Tiffany just said. Leave mama be, man. Hey, Steve, by the way, tell him to email me at askbrothergarfield@gmail.com. Askbrothergarfield@gmail.com. But leave mama alone, man. Poor mama. I let my mother die in peace. She was a Christian. My dad died. He was a Christian. They grew me up as a Christian. I'm leaving it alone. I'm leaving mama alone. Let her be. Mama, it's all good. Let it be, man. Let it be. That's all I'm gonna say.
That's not bad advice, man.
Mm-hmm. And by the way, too, we're not trying to change people's mind. We're trying to make people we're trying to make people understand the Bible from an academic perspective. Let them believe what they want to believe. Don't try to change a believer. All you got to do is make sense. There are people that call me every day on 3, 4-way, 5-way conference calls. I remember back in the days, the Hebrew woman. There's a bunch of Hebrew women that left the religion. Maybe that's why the Hebrews hate me, I just thought about this. There was a conference call. These women would call me weekly and just ask me questions. Tamika, I never told you about this. This is why I think these Hebrews hate me. And all these women left their Hebrew Israelite group or whatever. They left it and they became Kemetics. But I wasn't no Kemetic like that to say join Kemet. I'm saying if you leave a religion, you need some sort of therapy first. And then you go on to whatever. But I think that's why they hate me, man. I just figured it out. The woman, once you get the woman to not stop believing, it's a wrap. They're going to hate you for life. And that's what it was. These women used to call me every Sunday. We used to be on a conference call. They said, Garfield, you really mean that about Deuteronomy 28, man? You really mean that? I said, hey, here's the proof. And the worst thing is, you listen to a woman who is not listened to in their own religious belief system. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to ask you about something that came up on a show a couple weeks ago that we had when Kwame and another brother, he's a YouTuber outside the cube. They got into a debate about something that Jabari said, and I heard you mention it on your channel. So I want to kind of hear your 2 cents about it. So when Jabari said that he believes in a higher power, what does that mean to you, and what do you think that means to him?
When he says a higher power, he believes in how the Christians or anybody else believes. That's what he believes. He tells you he believes in a creator.
Do you believe in a higher power?
No, I don't. The only thing I believe is that my parents created a beautiful child. That's the only thing I believe. I don't believe nothing else. Because you can't prove that. You see, this is where it comes into where I said people are selfish that believe something. You don't need to tell anybody what you believe. Because if you're progressing in life, say, for example, Garfield is progressing and everything is going good for Garfield. And you say, yo, the boy, I get a blessing, man. It's a blessing from Jaja. God bless him. So now what does the Garfield do? Garfield sacrifices cat into his house. So now all of a sudden you start going around sacrificing cat. Then you don't get no blessing. You're like, that shit was fake. Come on, we got to stop watching what people believe, because what you believe, you can't guarantee. No Christian, no Kemetic follower, no Hebrew, no Muslim, no agnostic, no anything can guarantee anything in no afterlife. There's no guarantee. Even a Christian that believes wholeheartedly, you cannot guarantee me that there is some heaven. You can't. You fell for the okie doke and you want me to fall for it too. So when he says he believed in God, that was acknowledgement for the people to understand where the brother is coming from. I respect Brother Jabari for disclosing that, and I respect Pastor Bennett for setting him up. Period. And that's what it is. So you want to knock us and say, oh, I knock you because y'all copy Kemet. Really? You are copying Christianity. You see, when you turn Kemet into Christianity, that's when Garfield and you got problems. Because you can't show that the Ramesh used to do that. This is what the experts are saying. You can't show the Ramesh used to do that. So because you have a Roman Catholic background, you trying to impose that on your Kemetic systems. And that's wrong. Bro, they got something called communion. What the hell are you doing? You calling something communion? Because the Roman Catholics had communion? What are you doing? Come on, man. We don't need to do that. Leave them people religion alone. Leave it alone, man.
I have to say I agree with you. Well, we'll see. Q, call it in, bro.
What's that?
I don't know what Kwame went. He must have had something come up. But Q, you can join in, bro. Anybody want to join the panel, y'all welcome to join in, ask some questions. Garfield, if you got anything you want to say that we haven't said so far, you can do that.
The book, brothergarfielduniversity.com, brothergarfielduniversity.com. Check out my book. It's refreshing. Refreshing. I guarantee you this, you're going to learn more in this book than you've learned your entire life about the Bible. That's my guarantee when you read this.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to order this book, and I can't wait to read it. I advise everybody else to do the same. And by the way, I want to thank you one more time for coming on, because I'm looking at the live chat. This is the biggest live stream that we had so far. So I appreciate you, bro, for coming on and sharing the information with the people.
No problem, man. I do want to say to everybody that tuned in, make sure you subscribe to this brother's channel, as I just did. And
for sure,
supporting people who support Garfield, man. And that's what we're going to do. And peace and love to the chat. I don't really read chats when I'm live because sometimes it throws you off. But peace to the chat. Much love and respect to everyone. As you see, I'm not hating on anybody's religion. I'm just telling everybody what the scholarship says about certain issues. That's all I'm doing. I'm regurgitating what the scholarship says. Most of these ideas are not mine. They come from people who are experts in the field, experts in archaeology, experts in history, experts in the history, experts in the biblical text, experts in linguistics, experts with genetics, experts in anthropology. Those are the experts that I use. I'm not the expert per se in any of these things. So I use them as an authority because I am not an authority. That's how academia works. And people need to understand and respect that. And if you want to respond to this book, put something in writing. Garfield, you were wrong because X, Y, and Z, and let's go. Yeah, that's it. That's it. But definitely get the book. Look out for volume 2, probably by the New Year's.
Oh, okay. Definitely. All right. Peace and black power, people. With that being said, I want to remind everybody that this show also, we put it out as a podcast, so you can get it anywhere you get your podcast. And please visit the website KweliKush.com for updates. We post every day, so you want to stay up to date on what's happening in the community. Just go to the website and check us out. And once again, man, appreciate you, Brother Garfield, for coming on. And everybody, if you haven't already ordered the book, you can go ahead and do that, or plan to do that when you get paid on Friday. It's brothergarfielduniversity.com, brothergarfielduniversity.com. And you know what? I'll probably just go ahead and put the link in the chat for you and make it easy.
All right. That's what's up.
And with that, we will close out the show, man. Appreciate you, man. I'll reach out to you in the future. We'll do something else in the future. And that's my guy, Steve the Theorist, man. He's a good dude. So I'm looking forward to seeing what y'all do together, too.
All right, cool. All right, peace and love, family. Thanks for having me on. And ladies and gentlemen, support black people and support your own. BrotherGarfieldUniversity.com. This book is for the family. This book is for you guys. All right. Peace and love. And thanks for watching.
Peace.
And thanks for having me on, bro. Thanks. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Peace and love.